Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, I almost said Monday, Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. We had a special meeting before this and we did the flag salute, so I want to welcome everyone. Those of you that are here in the boardroom, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Those of you that are online, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules and watch us conduct our business tonight. I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
I move we approve tonight's agenda.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Stevenson. Can I get a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Director Prowse. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item B1, public comment. The Othello School Board of Directors is committed to hearing and seeking input from parents, teachers, and the community at large in a variety of formats. One of these formats is public comment at our regularly scheduled board meetings. The board generally meets on the second and fourth Monday each month at 7 p.m. The meeting calendar can be found at the Othello School District's website. The meetings are normally held at the district boardroom, 1025 South First Avenue in Othello. From time to time, the board will also meet at school locations. Public comment periods are held at the beginning of each regular meeting. Your goal for providing comment should be to raise a specific topic or issue with the school board. Our goal is to listen and learn from the community. We will not respond to testimony that evening. If you would like to speak before the school board, please follow these guidelines. Do not address questions to the board. The board's goal for the public comment period is to hear your concerns, comments, and opinions. Try to resolve any issues with teachers, school principals, or other district personnel before bringing the issue to the board. Recognize that the board does not discuss personnel matters at board meetings. Issues or concerns about individual staff members can be addressed with the board through letters or phone calls. Do your homework and understand the basic facts of the issue before addressing the board. Prepare an outline of your testimony so that it is well organized and avoids repetition. Plan to keep your remarks to 3 minutes. The board has limited time to hear all of those who sign up to speak. Members of the community who wish to speak to the board during the public comment period should sign up before the meeting starts. A sign-up sheet is available at the back right side room of the boardroom, usually by 6:45 p.m. Please print your name and complete address legibly on the sign-up sheet. When the board is ready, the president will refer to the sign-up sheet and call out the names in the order they appear. When your name is called, approach the front table, speak into the microphone, giving your full name and where you live for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be respectful of the board when speaking. Be ready to respond to questions from the board if asked. Address your testimony to the board members, not the audience. Do not address questions to the board. The board's goal for public comment period is to hear your concerns, comments, and opinions. Questions can be answered through calls or letters to the board members. Marissa, do we have anybody online that wishes to address? Okay. We do have 3 requests tonight. We will begin, God, and I hope I don't butcher this, Donna
Shestak.
Would you please come up? I am so sorry about that. I was instructed to tell you just tap the microphone 1 time and it'll stay on the bottom. The microphone itself, I am so sorry.
This side?
There we go, there we go.
If you're asking me, I'm not technical. I'm going to tell you. I'm like the queen of breaking things. Well, thank you. I wanted to come and say that we appreciate the fact that you came to our school at Hiawatha and talked with us. In yesterday's meeting, you stated that IPD and flow-through were on the table. And my wonderings was when I got home, because I never thought to ask this questions, was is it in writing that flow-through is there, or is that implied? And the wonderings is that, are you looking at IPD and flow-through as separate issues, or are you looking at them as there's separate issues, or if they're together? That was my first thought, or my wonderings. And the second wondering that I had was that language is so important, and that implied is not the same as being written. And so my concern is that on the table means that it's implied and not written. And so when we're talking about those things, I wish that it was in writing, and instead of saying it's on the table, that you're offering it to us in writing. Because in writing says that you're committed implied means that it's still out there. The other wondering I had was the language around psych. And I lost a little bit of the conversation, but it was regarding files and students. And my wondering was, is that verbiage going to be or? It's going to be or one in whatever the amount of students are, 1,250, or X amount of files, or do they do both? Those were my wonderings. Thank you again for coming to our school and sharing your information, but I had those wonderings and I didn't want to let them go over winter break. So I'm hoping you have time to answer them or get back to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate your comment. We'll now ask Mr. Lauren Jensen to come to the mic.
Sharon, I'm gonna sit down, okay? Because I told her if I have a heart attack, she's taking me to the hospital.
No heart attack. No heart attack.
All right. Thank you, everybody that's here. Board, I thank you guys for all you do. Staff, thank you for all you do. If you don't know me, I'm Lauren Jensen. I happen to be our OEA president, our Education Association. I am OSD. I am Othello. I was born at the hospital. When I tell my first graders that, they're like, huh? I was born here in 1973. I went to school here. I came back. I love my job. I love teaching. You guys know why I'm here. We've been in negotiation 9 months. We've been 6 months working off from an expired CBA. My biggest thing is we should be at least getting the 2% IPD that the state has not only given the district, but the district has. It's already been funded, so, that messaging that's going out to our staff that we're not even getting that hurts. None of us went into teaching to get rich. We went into it for kids. And if you guys want to ask anybody ever why they went into it, it's not about the money, it's about kids, and we're there for them constantly. We make the sacrifices. But we cannot afford to do it with stalled wages. As everything else is going up. Prices are rising. We're working off the same money as we did last year. And so we've had the language in our CBA the last 3 years, and the language states IPD or 3%, 3.1% flow through, whichever is greater. This has not caused our district to go into the red. We have not even used all of our budgeted money. Sound fiscally, yes. But again, I would ask you guys that we look at the ending fund balance of 18-19, 19-20, and 20-21. A little bit of homework for you guys. Because we had 3.1% in at that time. So, and again, times are trying, times are tough. But we are there at school every day. We continue to teach. We provide the best learning environment for our children. All through the craziness. We've all heard the good, the bad, and the ugly about COVID, this and that. The entire world was shattered. So 6 months working without a CBA is too long. Our next mediation is Thursday. Let's get this resolved. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. That goes fast.
Appreciate that. I'll now ask Mr. Jake Mendez.
Yes, I'm Jake Mendez Jr. I'm an ACLU member and also an activist for the community of Othello. I spoke with a few residents here in Othello regarding the bond, and they had a few concerns that weren't mentioned as far as the restructure of the buildings, the schools, the two key details that were missing as to what was planned for those students with disabilities, hearing impaired and you know, other disabilities as well. And second was anything about security wise, as far as the bond goes. There was no mention of that, and I have reviewed those meetings that you guys had, the one at the McFarland Middle School and the one at the high school, and the one at Wahidas. And those are the two main things that some citizens here in Othello were just concerned that they weren't mentioned. So they're starting to have doubt in the vote, or they're starting to have doubt as to what's going to lead on to the benefit of all, instead of just more office space and more gyms for those that have the ability to walk. There's not much concern as to regards of anyone with disabilities, the ones that are in wheelchairs. There's going to be any Braille readings, enhancement for students, or areas to where students feel comfortable and can be independent on all the school grounds and not have to maneuver around students, clogging up the hallways or the cafeteria or the lunch areas. So those are just my concerns I wanted to address on behalf of the residents here in Othello. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment, Jake. Appreciate that.
I'll just provide a few comments for all three speakers. I think it's important to acknowledge folks when they show up on a Tuesday evening and take some time out of their schedule to be here. I'm going to go in reverse order. I'm going to start with Mr. Mendez. So I know you were at some of those events and you saw the presentation, and we tried to be consistent with what we were sharing with folks about just information for the bond project, and then they vote how they vote. But we're all aware that the election didn't go in our favor. We're not going to be building a facility this school year, and so we need to regroup. We need the kind of feedback that you provided. And so we're already meeting to talk about how do we engage with stakeholders through something called Thought Exchange, where we share ideas and we hear from folks why they didn't support it. What didn't they like about it? Because the need's not going to go away. We have the students, we have the need, and we need to address it. The other piece you made specific to students with disabilities, right? It's really being mindful of everything that we do on our campuses. We're required to follow ADA and be compliant with those things. So we are thinking about them. It might not have been as present in our presentations, but we're thinking about them. And as it relates to safety, I'll speak specifically to the proposed bond package as it relates to McFarland Middle School and the high school. You know, the intention there was, in the initial design, how do we enclose that 600 building, those science wings that are there? How do we bring that into one campus area? How do we make more seating for more students for lunch? How do we address how students transition? Definitely safety related. And at McFarland, a similar thing. How do we go away from what the folks in the room who used to work at McFarland with all those portables out there, sending a kid from the portable to the main office without being able to enter the building, those kinds of things. So they're all part of our considerations, but appreciate your feedback around that. I guess Lauren was next, so I'll jump up the ladder to Lauren. I would like to acknowledge Lauren for his presence and participation here today. I'd like to acknowledge him also for his presence and participation yesterday in the informational meeting at Hiawatha. I really, I was glad he was there to listen, because that's going to be our way out of this, is listening to each other. I would encourage the rest of you, there are 2 sessions left, one at Othello High School tomorrow and one at McFarland Middle School. We've split up both teams into 2 teams to get the messaging out. But you're not required to be there. You're not required to be here tonight either. But I'd sure like you to show up and ask your questions. Dig deep. Let's see what our differences are. But there's no way to understand those differences unless we're in the room talking. So I applaud you for being here tonight, to be willing to talk. That's what's going to get us out of this. And I acknowledge Lauren for the tough job that he has right now to try and manage the current circumstance that we're all dealing with. As it relates to fund balance and all that stuff, I'll let him worry about that. But I appreciate you being here tonight, Lauren.
Thank you.
Well, the next one around Donna, I know you asked some specific questions about language, and we just had a book study, How Not to Be a Terrible Board Member. And one of the chapters in there was around You don't negotiate for the school district. And so there's some caution in addressing your questions specifically about IPD and flow-through and the school psych ratios and what's been offered. I guess my advice to you or to anyone in the room would be, I think that's up to OEA leadership to share with you and your bargaining team. I'm not going to bargain individually with anyone. That's not fair to them and not fair to you. So I would, ask them, and if there's a lack of clarity or a theme that we begin to hear in our informational visits that something isn't resonating with you all, unless we're clear about it, we're not going to know which way to go. So if there's a perception about IPD and flow through, or there's a perception about counseling ratios or number of reports, I think right now, we've shared in the sessions, we're all OSD. This isn't OSD against OEA, because we're all OSD. We're on different sides of the table right now, but it's important that we take opportunities like this to be in the room together. And if what's being read on a paper or being implied, as you indicated, isn't accurate, then why don't we sit in the room and talk about it? And I'm as hopeful as Lauren is about Thursday. I'm hopeful we get a deal on Thursday as well. I'm hopeful that we get an agreement to talk to each other, maybe even be in the same room. But I can only control what's happening on our side of the table. And I'm hopeful that what Lauren demonstrated yesterday and what he's demonstrating today will be the theme of what happens on Thursday. And maybe Thursday we'll all celebrate. Or maybe Thursday we'll go into midwinter break and we'll keep working, because we've got to get done. You want to be done and we want to be done. But it's not going to happen if we're not talking to each other. So thank you for coming in and talking tonight. Thank you for letting me talk. We don't always do that, but I think it's important to acknowledge your interest and your effort in being here. I know some teachers pretty closely. I know some of you very closely. I know how hard you work. I know how hard it is to come in at 7 and be here at 7. I understand that. And so you being here is an important message to all of us. And so I thank you for doing that.
Thank you all very much. Yes. Moving on to item B2, board member discussion. Legislative report, Director Stevenson.
So I wanted to share that I spoke in person with Chris Reichdahl on Friday, with some other board members from throughout the state. And he specifically, it was a question and answer thing, he specifically addressed masks and what's happening there. He said that that's how he called him, Jay will be addressing us this week, and I've heard from others, they think tomorrow, about when the masks will be coming off. And then I didn't get time to ask my question that I wanted to, but I plan on emailing Mr. Reichdahl about the concerns that we have, personally that I have about districts going bankrupt if there is a vaccine mandate for students. So that is something that it was a really interesting conversation. There was a lot of questions about lots of different things. Appropriations were discussed. Smaller districts, how smaller districts cost much more than other districts, like a district our size, has a different cost per student than a district that has maybe 900 students that could be merged with another one. His opinion is that the next legislative session, that will be a big, loud discussion that will be happening. So then I started looking at and thinking about other districts. He was referencing it after, I cannot remember what district she's from, but she was in a suburban area, and there's all these districts that are mashed up against each other, and he basically said, your district costs $33,000 to educate one student because of the overhead costs and the building costs and all of those things. If 2 or 3 smaller districts merged together, or some were just wiped out, Vader School District was discussed. That is a district that went bankrupt. That we used to have 296 districts in our state. We now have 295 because Vader went bankrupt. I thought that was a hilarious name. personally, and then had to merge with Southside. And so that is something that's going to be really addressed soon. So that was an interesting part of the conversation. So there was, I mean, it was fascinating. So this was all part of Leadership WASDA. I think I told the board the last meeting that it's an application process. Only a few get in, and I was actually accepted. There's only 26 throughout this state that were accepted into this. I think it's 26. And they only do it every 2 years. And it was an amazing session. I would highly, they actually skipped. So we're on year 3. I don't know if they're going to do next year or wait 2 years or whatever. I highly suggest, but only 2 board members from a district at a time can do it so that there's no open public meetings and such. So another thing that I got to participate in recently was a Zoom with Senator Patty Murray, who is our federal senator for the state of Washington. We specifically address with other board members across the state IDEA funding at the federal level, fully funding IDEA. That was a loud discussion. She heard us. Broadband, that it's an issue everywhere, not just in districts like us. Right to repair. This was a huge topic. And so I was like, I don't know what we're talking about. So I had to do some research. So when we buy these fun little things and a student breaks one or something and we have to repair it, it voids the warranty. And so districts around the United States are trying to say we should have the right to repair these without voiding the warranty. Please change the language in the law, because I know my children have broken multiples of these. And after paying that fun expense, or forcing them to pay that fun expense. So that was a very interesting thing that is a big hot topic, both locally to our state government and federally. And then that levies and bonds statewide and nationwide are had a lot of issues. It was an atypical vote this year that many were failing or did fail when many of them normally do. So that was the federal things that I know that Lindsay and I and both of the student reps were able to do the NSBA advocacy conference. And so that was tied into that. And legislator, Rep Newhouse, thank you. He wasn't able to meet at the same time as everyone else, but I put my name on that list to be part of that conversation when WASDA met with him and anyone within his jurisdiction. So I will update you when that happens. For the state legislation, we're out of both. We've met both deadlines for committees. And now we're into floor debates, votes, horse trading is the best way to describe that, I guess. So there's a lot of things that have gotten knocked out. Many of those will likely come back. There is still some things that are up for discussion. And so I will give you updates at the next one about where we're at there. I did want to tell you that there is a town hall meeting that the 9th Legislative District is going to be doing, and anyone can get on. It's, let me see if I can find it in Joe Schmick's email. There's a ton of bills out there, and they like to share all this information about them, but I think that the ones that affect education are more important to be shared in this session, so I only share those kinds of things. So this is specifically what Representative Schmick said in his last one. As a reminder, please mark your calendars for our 9th Legislative District Zoom Town Hall meeting on Tuesday, February 22nd from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then there's a link to register for the event could I send this to the district and they put it on either Facebook or, Ed, or, there you are, Facebook or the website or whatever, because I think that this is really beneficial stuff. You can even send questions before. I'll update you because I know you were standing outside the room.
Director Stevenson, could I interrupt for a moment just
Yes,
before a couple
please.
more people leave? Because I think it's important, there's some key communicators in the room, particularly about the masks. And you made a statement earlier about what Governor Inslee's going to do. So I want to give some fresh information to the people in the room and those watching, because I know there's some energy in the region now around this. So my understanding is that Governor Inslee's going to hold a press conference on Thursday at 2 p.m. And he's going to talk about the timeline for what's going to happen with masks. There are 2 school districts in the state of Washington that have made a decision as a board to make masking optional. The Kettle Falls School District did that yesterday, and today the Richland School District did the same. So there's some social media energy in the region that, hey, now it's your turn, right? Kettle Falls received a message today from OSPI saying, you better knock it off. We'll see how long that lasts. Richland, maybe they're paying attention or are better connected politically and know what Governor Inslee's going to say on Thursday. Maybe they're ahead of the game a bit. But I think there's some caution for all of us if you pay attention to what's happening in Oregon. So I have a colleague there. In Oregon, mask mandates go away, I think, on the 31st of March. And so everyone gets excited and you read that headline and you stop reading. What it currently says, if you take away the masks in your school district, you go back to 6 feet. If you take away the masks in your school district, no more tests to stay. If you take away the masks in your school district and you gave employees exemptions from vaccine, they have to wear an N95. Like, there are multiple layers to how this is going to unwind. And as much as everyone in this room or this community wants the masks to go away tomorrow, it may or may not happen. So when you read the headlines, it's important that we're careful and that we're cautious, because it can feel like, well, Richland did it, so do we. Well, what did Richland say? If 95% of their people are vaccinated and it's only a handful of teachers that are now going to have to wear a mask, that's an overwhelming majority. Maybe they're comfortable with that. We haven't checked the numbers in our district. I'm not sure we're there. So I think it's important that we wait and see what happens Thursday, and then we respond appropriately. We just don't want to get too far ahead of this and feel like the pressure to do this today to send a political message when we're hopefully at the end of this masking concern is about to go away. And I think it's important that you all hear that. So you should not leave here thinking that we're going to come back from midwinter break without masks. I'm not sure we can make that pledge to folks, and we shouldn't be saying it to them if it's not accurate. A highly contentious issue. Lots of emotion around it.
One late, last-minute thing about Richland, it just came out in the last few minutes. They have canceled classes for tomorrow because they need to figure out the path forward to make it safe for everybody, is what you're saying.
Thank you for sharing those, clarifying those details. Those are very important to also hear with, it's coming, just, yes, we need to make sure that we're doing it correctly, not willy-nilly.
Absolutely appreciate that clarification. Thanks. Thank you, Ed, as well, for your comment.
So those were all of the details actually that I had for the legislative report at this time.
Okay. There will be a board member meeting attendance review that'll go, I think we all need an initial. We already did it. If you didn't notice, you took care of that, thank you. Our plus deltas for our last meeting, I think it is a great way. We are utilizing a very good method to keep ourselves accountable on our meetings. We will continue to do that. Our school calendar's on there. Don't know if we have any adjustments at this time that need to be corrected. Our superintendent goals continue to be there as a reminder to us. So yeah, I appreciate your report, Director Stevenson. It sounds like you had a good time at Thursday and Friday over there. And it's great that you're able to represent us and bring back such vital information from what's going on. Sometimes, you know, in our busy lives, you'll get an email from somebody and you're like, oh man, I don't want to read this whole 2 pages or what have you. Thanks for doing that for us. I truly appreciate that. Moving on to item B3, student representative reports. Consuelo, you're going solo tonight, so the floor is yours.
All right, I got 2 reports. I got one from Mr. Tolvor, and I got some from the students. As you guys know, I send out surveys, and I sent out 2 different surveys. The first one I sent out, I got almost 100 responses from the students, which is almost the entire student body.
Awesome.
It's great because, they're actually, trying to help out. And the second one I sent out just a couple days ago, so it didn't get that many, but it's still enough. And so I'll read Mr. Tovar's report first. So for semester 1 attendance, the averages were for sophomores was 86%, the juniors were at 84, seniors were at 85, and we had a total of 88%. And then the current attendance for second semester, the sophomores are at 97, juniors are at 95, and seniors are at 93, so we have a total of 95%. It's kind of sad because, the seniors are losing. and
You're a
it's-
senior, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Consuelo.
I want that pizza party, And so we have 16 students transferred over from OHS to DOHS this semester, and they're all a great addition to our school, and this brings our student enrollment to 124. Last week, we had 3 National Guard members visit our Family Leadership Institute, as well as our senior class, to share the benefits of joining the National Guard. I was able to go and listen to the National Guard. It was honestly great. I was actually considering joining at one point. So, yeah, it was great to have them there, and it was very informative. It was awesome. We have 2 new elective classes, the Family Leadership Institute and Interdisciplinary Arts, and they're going very well. Students are excited about these classes and are trying new things, like the reenactment of our book they recently read, Harvest of Memories by Richard Perez. And we're working out the details to have the author visit us, and apparently he was raised in Othello and is currently living in the Yakima Valley.
Are you in either of those classes?
Sadly, no, not until I think the next quarter.
So that first name that you said, what, can you tell me in layman's terms, what is that?
The
That-
which one?
The family?
Oh, the family leadership. So, from what I have understood, we do financial lit for 9 weeks, and that teaches us about taxes and financial stuff. So, how to handle ourselves financially and all those things. And then Family Leadership Institute basically is anything outside of that. So, the real world. And it teaches us like why people are the way that they are, and why they have different opinions, or why they think certain ways. And it teaches us different life skills, and so I'm really excited about taking that class. And yeah, that's basically all I understood about that class.
And who teaches that?
Miss Mendoza.
Awesome.
Consuelo, who was the author that was from this area?
It was Richard Perez.
Oh, thank you.
And so next we have the OSPI student COVID survey, and we're taking that next week during advisory classes. And lastly, DOHS is getting their students ready for the upcoming WIDA language assessment. This used to be called the ELPA assessment. We reinstated our ELL intervention check-in days. We will have a total of 8 intervention days during advisory for all 53 ELL bilingual students in our school, which makes up 43% of our students. Our goal is to provide all bilingual students with test-taking strategies that will help them improve and pass their WIDA assessment. We are scheduled to take this assessment on March 8th and 9th. And Mr. Alvarez, Mrs. Tovar, Ms. Mendoza, and Mr. Tovar all have a group of 10 to 14 students that they work with, and they help them with reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So they'll be able to pass their tests.
Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Were you done?
Now I got the student one now.
Oh, keep going.
So I sent out my student surveys. Honestly, it was a lot of responses to go through. So I picked out the ones that were the most common. And basically, a lot of students were asking if we could have after-school programs. I know we do night classes for those that want more help, but a lot of them were talking about like, I don't know, like guitar lessons after school, or like extra art classes, maybe like a chess club, or like just different clubs after school. So, could be more involved in all those things. They were also talking about the crowding problem at school. We are a very little school. We don't have that many students, but we are still pretty crowded in certain classrooms. I know my fine arts class is pretty crowded. We had to bring in a couple extra desks for our students because, we couldn't all fit in the small classroom. And so it was very difficult. Also, many of them wanted more college information. I know that the high school, this Thursday is having Central Washington University, and we were wondering if we could get invited to those and if we were allowed to go to those as well, because they do, they help them with applications for college, and they, you could get into the college with their help because they're there to help the students, and we don't really have access to that at our school. I know Ms. Tovar does a really good job of helping us with that, and our advisory teachers, but I feel like if we were to go to those, we'd have more opportunity for the students that really are interested in going to college. The next one was to provide more resources. That one, I guess, is a given, I guess. They just, our art class, I know we don't have a lot of material.
So
and
when you say
stuff.
more resources in reference to art, like art supplies,
Yeah,
please tell your teacher to come and talk to me at the old hotel. I could definitely
okay.
fix that. But what other kind of resources? So is there still a school pantry? Do you know? Like food?
Yes.
Okay. And is there clothing and other things also? Are you referring to someone in the audience? Because I think that if the citizens knew of needs and exactly what those needs are, those would be met quickly. And I know that Mr. Tovar and I had worked together on trying to get the food bank, the food pantry at your campus, something, but are there specific resources that they addressed or just said more resources?
They basically just said more resources.
Okay. Have you shared this? I'm sure that you're not done. Have you shared this report with what the student said to Mr. Tovar?
Not yet. I wasn't able to
Oh,
today.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then the other thing was masks. But,
That everyone at your campus loves them and wants to keep them on forever?
Basically, there's a big problem with the whole COVID thing. I saw a lot of kids were saying that they were scared to go to school because of the whole COVID thing. I am a very paranoid person, so I check the numbers daily. And yeah, I understand why they would be scared. The numbers are very high, and honestly, I don't want to get rid of these because I want to stay safe. I feel like they help a lot. I know many people will not agree with me, but yeah, that is one thing that the students said. And then the other thing was food. They complain about that a lot.
The school lunch and breakfast food?
Yeah. Also for the milk, they say that it's. I don't eat breakfast at school, so I really wouldn't know. But they say that the milk is always bad, and it's chunky. But yeah, and also field trips. They've been wanting more of those. I know with COVID that had to stop, and it's kind of mainly for safety and all those things. But the students, especially the seniors, were more interested in field trips because we haven't been able to go to any college campuses for senior year to get more of an experience of what it's like to be on a college campus. Yeah, that was basically it.
I think it's amazing that, first of all, you asked those questions. Second of all, that you told us all of those things and shared your opinion, even knowing that your opinion might not be a favored opinion out in the community, but that you are representing the students of your campus. Kudos to you.
Agreed. Just to clarify, so the responses on your student survey were that, like, majority of students wanted to keep their masks?
Most of them, and then the other half were just complaints that they weren't wearing the masks right. Some of them did want to get rid of them, but it was kind of split, really.
Okay. Thank you. That's good information.
I'd just provide a quick comment, President Garza, just for a moment, to make sure that there's going to be an item in superintendent informational items where we talk about the student application process and the participation of student reps, which I know you have demonstrated a strong commitment towards, and same thing from the district with our superintendent leadership group. I think there is a bit of caution in Jen, you asked, Director Stevenson asked a really good question. Has Principal Tovar seen any of these? Because me saying yes to something here, or you saying yes to something there, that only he can say yes to because he has all the pieces, I just think there's some filtering that needs to happen between, that step and this step. And so I just want to, throw that out there with all transparency. And also that we want to hear student voice, and we want concerns to come, and then, give it to the appropriate folks to respond. And I liken it to what happened here tonight, which is someone comes in and says something, and we commit to listening and thinking about it. I think we owe that to Consuelo as well. We'll listen to it and think about it, and then respond as appropriate. So I just wanted to make sure that, in thinking about what I would want to hear as a building principal from my superintendent is, Superintendent Perez said, those are my things to deal with until he has to. So I want to be really clear about that.
Point taken. Thanks. Appreciate that. Appreciate all the information as well, Consuelo. Thank you. Moving on to item C1, I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's required approvals after Jen makes.
Thank you. You saw that, yes. I have a few questions. Thank you, Amy, for just coming up, because there were a lot of new businesses and such that we were paying in this one that I hadn't seen before, and some dollar amounts, so I wanted to ask a few questions about some of those, what they are. Many of them I recognize or had asked the question already. So, $5,000 to the auditor, the county auditor.
Yes, that's what, our portion of the election cost for the bond.
Okay, great. Let's see, Committee for Children, we paid them $19,000.
That was for a 3-year license for our second step for K through 8. It's for social emotional learning.
Oh, okay, awesome. Maybe that's why I don't recognize that, because I don't remember 3 years ago.
It's a 3-year license, 3.
Okay, gotcha. Kennewick School District for $15,000.
That's for elementary science kits.
Oh, all right. And then the last one is $32,000 to Koru. I don't even know how to say that. Strategy.
There are some teachers and administrators, I believe, that are going through a certification process to become DataWise coaches.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would like to move that we approve the required approvals.
Motion's been made by Director Stevenson. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Schutte. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve account payables warrant 2.
I make a motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I second that.
Made by Director Prouse, seconded by Director Stevenson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I will have to abstain.
Okay, motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. Moving on to item C3, superintendent informational items.
Just 2 items this evening. One is around the student representative application update. Been working with the high school on that process. We have 3 completed applications in already. We expect as many as 12 more.
Wow.
So, if we land somewhere around 10, What we want to get confirmation from the board from tonight is that we would put those in a digital PDF format, share those with you, and then determine, do you want to interview 10 folks? Do you want to pare it down to 5? So we might have a good problem this year, which is a number of applications to consider. But we'll follow up with you at the end of the week about how many came in. You know, midwinter break might put a little hiccup in that, but maybe by Wednesday or Thursday of next week, we can give you those completed applications.
And then do we have like a timeline as to then what we're doing next? I mean, I know that we missed our last timeline.
We did, and again, that's the conversation we want to get into. If you tell us we want to honor every kid who submitted and do 10 interviews, and we'll have to think about, do we need a special meeting? Do we need to break into groups? You know, do we need to do something different? So I think we want to see how many come in, bring those to you. I'll probably bring them to President Garza, and then we could make a decision about what the next steps would be. But I did want to let you know we're generating some, and we're going to get a handful.
Were most of these applicants from the leadership program?
I don't
This
believe
one?
so. I think it's just word of mouth, words getting out from some of those kids, and then others. Yeah.
Great.
So we're tentatively scheduled to interview on the 28th, but I think with midwinter break in here, it might be
Of March?
no, of February.
Next board meeting.
The next before.
Oh,
the
that's
next-
right. Okay, sorry, it's just been such a weird break
that-
between the 5 weeks of last month and.
Is that like an hour that we set aside? So 10 would be
I
awful
think so.
long time. I mean, to get 10 in an hour.
Yep.
Whoa.
I think once we get the list, the final list, we'll make that determination.
We'll see what we have by the end of day Thursday, which is the last school day before midwinter break, and then we'll communicate with you about what might be the best next steps.
So that's the deadline right now, is the turn-in deadline is Thursday?
No, I think it's Friday. Yeah, so that is the deadline. Okay.
Wow, that's cool.
Okay,
Okay.
great. That's
Uh,
a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
We've never
Excellent.
had that.
Well, speaking of applicants, it could be a good problem because you could have 12 and say, whoa, we need 12 more. But thinking about applicants for middle school principal, this is a process being led by Assistant Superintendent Jessica Schenk. And so I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with that. A week ago today, an initial committee came together at the school, and there are about 10 folks that represent the different grade bands and content areas. Committee is being co-chaired by Brenda Dunn and Denise Colley. And so they're running a series of interviews and asking questions of folks like, what do you want in the next McFarland Middle School principal? Next week, those interviews will continue, and then on the 24th of February, that committee is going to get together, and they're going to write a vision statement, and Jessica's going to help them with that process to say, here's what we want, here's what we need in our next principal, here's what our kids need. They'll take that information together, and then on March 1st, with that vision in mind, they're going to get all the applications. They're going to sort through them. They're going to find the best candidates to interview, and then we're going to interview March 7th through the 11th and bring a recommendation to the board shortly after that. So we would hope by the end of March that we would have identified the next principal at McFarland Middle School.
Do you have a student component to that?
So the interview process, we're working on.
Not necessarily, like maybe the vision, not necessarily, well, however, if you want to put the students in an interview, fine. But that's, I guess, what I was referring to.
Yeah. So the visioning process, I hadn't really thought about that, but that might be a good component that we could add pretty easily, a student focus group. Related to the interviews, at most what we would do is maybe have folks do a tour of the campus with 2 of our kids and then ask the kids, hey, what'd you think of the first applicant? What'd you think of the, just to get an initial, like, how are they around students? Watch them in that environment. But certainly students wouldn't be in the formal interview process. But that point about student voice is a good one, so I'll make sure that we consider that in sort of preparing the vision for that. So that was, those are the 2 items for me this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate the information. Moving on to item E1, policy review. We do have DOP 2410. It is a second reading. I think we should make a decision on that tonight.
So I have a couple of questions on, I don't even know what page it's on. It's, maybe you'll know. So for the 2023 school year, there's 27 credits that's needed to graduate. For the 2024 year, there's 28 credits in order to graduate, to meet the graduation requirements. And for 2025, there's 29. Is that tied to a RCW to a state thing to a local thing?
Yeah, so the folks who did this work, who led this work from Othello High School, they're here this evening, and so I would invite them to come forward and take any questions you might have about it. What I want to make sure we're clear about is that we typically don't put the procedure in this portion, but because much of that work had shifted over and been edited, we thought it was important. These are the folks that edited that work, and so I'll invite, it looks like David Spencer's going to come up and provide some clarity around that.
So you're asking about the credits for, there's no RCW per se beyond the 24, but with moving to the trimesters, our potential credits to earn are going to grow exponentially. So the State Board of Education recommends a certain gap between required credits and available credits. Because otherwise you're going to run into a situation where students technically have credits to graduate their junior year, but don't have the required classes. So that's why they build that. They want it within a range between possible credits and credits to graduate.
So is there like a percentage, or how does that number work out?
They say they want it between 2 and 4 credits between.
Okay.
So we erred on the side of the 4. So 33 potential credits to graduate because we're now crediting advisory daily. And so we said 29 credits to meet graduation requirements for Othello School District. We're already above the state minimum at 26.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So if you're saying 4, for those that are taking seminary, if there is passing of all classes and they only take one of the trimesters for seminary, they should still be able to graduate without having to do extra.
Yeah, no Odyssey War, no summer school. There's potential for that.
Okay.
So it does provide a little bit more flexibility for those students that want religious release.
That is the better word, thank you. Because I just want to make sure that I fully understood. Thank you. Those are all the specific questions that I had at this time.
Anybody else?
This is very thorough and awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, you bet.
Any other questions on this? Does this need- I think this needs approval. Okay.
So it'll be final approval on the
Final
next
reading
one.
at the
We'll
next
put the DOP.
But we only need to do, we don't have to do the procedure, right?
That
Just
won't
the
reappear, but
DOP.
we wanted you to have it
Right, so
layered
we
next
could,
to each other. So we'll add it for policy or for approval at the next board meeting.
Yeah, I just want to commend as well, you folks that have done this work. Reading it is long enough, let alone putting it together, so kudos to you all. Anybody who helped you, please
yes.
spread the word that this is very thorough. It is very, I think, needs very little explanation. I was like, oh my God, so we're going to require so much more of them, but you put it the way you do, and it's pretty self-explanatory, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Consuelo, did you have a chance to read that? I know it does affect you and your family in the future.
I wasn't able to look over it,
Okay.
but I will look over it again.
Because there is a whole Desert Oasis section, which is different than the Othello High School section.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item F1, upcoming events. I think we'll leave that there is tentative for the 28th for the interviews. If a change is made later, we will address it at that time. And February 28th is our next board meeting. Any other announcements that we think we need to do?
We have some student athletes that are doing some pretty cool things in the next week. We've got our girls basketball team that has a playoff game tomorrow night.
Go Huskies.
And I don't think our girls have made it this far in a hot minute. So, and they're good. Like, they're fun to
Okay.
watch. And then our wrestlers are going to state this weekend.
After all of those events are done, could we have them come in for some recognition and maybe some of the other, I know that we've not really been able to get to that for a while. I think we're all ready to go back to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think at the next board meeting, we're scheduled to have a student recognition around choir or band, I believe, for some
Awesome.
outstanding performance. And I think by that point, the wrestling season will have ended. We'll know how the teams did there. basketball will have come to a conclusion. So absolutely getting more students here is on the calendar.
Good, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, if we can turn now to item F2, our self-assessment of the meeting. Glad to have Marissa in the house tonight. No, you did a great job last time.
No pressure,
You
no
did great last
pressure.
time.
I
Yeah.
loved that we had multiple public comments, that we had people present. I mean, that we know that there were people on Zoom. I mean, we got to see them for a split second at the beginning. Just people engaged in what's happening, and that what we do here is important. It affects our community.
I'm going to continue harping on a well-planned agenda. I think it's relevant, and the things we are discussing are pertinent, and I think we should commend ourselves for that.
Awesome student rep report. That is probably one of the best student rep reports since I have been on the board. I think.
Excellent information for us. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was great.
We love to hear what students have to say.
For me, you know, anytime there's a meeting that's going to happen like this, it's always like I have a stomach ache. And so I was very anxious about tonight's meeting. But I just appreciate like the level of respect held on both sides of the table. And so I appreciate that it was very respectful and felt like, okay, we can, let's do this.
I agree.
Well, the book study. So I came in here thinking, I don't know what we're going to do with this, but I really appreciate, because I think Pete opened it up for me personally to explain things in a whole different way, even though we're all talking. So Pete, thank you with the book study. I will go to the next 5 chapters.
Absolutely.
And also, thank you for the updates on the mask.
Yeah.
I know it's a hot topic right now, and I know there's a lot more behind it than just saying we can take them off now.
I'd like to add one, in responding to Lauren tonight. One thing that I left out, and I think is important for all of us to remember, and it applies to many of the people in this room, the way that Lauren started his conversation, which was, I'm Othello, I'm from here, I was born in that hospital, I went to these schools, I know all of you. Replace Lauren's name with Lindsay. Replace Lauren's name with Sharon. Replace Lauren's name with Ken. Replace Lauren's name with Mike. Replace Lauren's name with Pete, with Marisa, with Janae. We're fighting with each other. And I think for me, not acknowledging and recognizing that is a delta, because we're doing a lot of othering. And you start your message intentionally with a particular intent. And I hope it's that we're all in this together. We're all the Othello School District.
Agreed.
Anything else anybody wants to add?
Missing, I mean, it would be great if we had both student reps able to be present. And Ken at the book study, just not you specifically, just all of us, I guess, and Elise as well at the book study. It's a loss when we have one of us gone.
And we are, just as a point of reference, Ken, we're going to finish the entire section 1 for the next study.
And Marisa, you're included in that too.
So you do that.
You're essential.
Lucky.
We're writing our own book.
Right on.
All right, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you all. Let's keep our heads high. Let's continue doing what we do. And at the forefront of everything we're doing, let's remember everything we're doing, every decision we're making, every plan we're hoping to execute is for the betterment of the kids. I appreciate you all very much. Those of you in the audience, those of you listening, thank you very much as well again for joining us tonight. Our business is concluded. This meeting's adjourned.